Yashaahla. I'm the founder of Minds on Meals. Minds on Meals provides nutrition and cooking education for those looking to begin or enhance their plant-based diet. Tonight we're going to make a few recipes that feature chickpeas. So chickpeas are a healthy alternative to meat. They offer plenty of protein, also calcium and fiber. And as we go into the recipe, I'll tell you a little bit more about chickpeas. So to get us started, we're going to make a Not So Tuna Salad. That could be for lunch or for a snack. But to get more bang for our buck, we're going to turn that Not So Tuna Salad into Crabless Cakes all in one shot. So stay tuned. The ingredients you'll need for your Not So Tuna Salad include chickpeas. So we'll use 1.5 cups or about a can. Either if you cook them yourself or if you decide to buy a can, be sure to rinse and drain your chickpeas. If you cook them at home, you want to make sure they're cooked and they're soft enough to kind of pulse and chop. You'll also need 2 ribs of celery, which I have just chopped up a little here, and 1/2 of an onion. So this was a small onion, so I'm using a whole small onion, but if you have a larger onion, you'll want to just use 1/2. And I just quartered this to get it started. The other ingredients you're going to need for your Not So Tuna Salad include 1/4 cup of vegan mayo. Any non-dairy brand is fine. And then to spice it up, we're going to use Old Bay seasoning and also sea seasoning, which you can replace with any kind of seaweed you have, like kelp or dulse or even nori. This one contains a mixture of dulse, nori, and sea lettuce. So we're going to sprinkle this in to give our Not So Tuna Salad a tuna taste. Okay, so let's get started. First, you're going to use your food processor to finely chop your vegetables. So I'll start by adding the celery. Remember that was 2 ribs of celery, and then our onions. And we're just going to chop this not to the finest point, but just a little, because in a moment we're going to add in the chickpeas. So suppose you don't have a food processor and you want to try this recipe. Well, you'll just have to finely chop them first before we include the chickpeas. Also, if you're not using a food processor, when it comes down to the chickpeas, you can just mash them with the back of a spoon or fork or even a potato masher to help get them down to chunks. Small chunks is what you want in your Not So Tuna Salad. So we're just going to pulse this a few times until we get down to some diced onions and celery. Alright, so when you're almost there, stop, because that's when you want to add in your chickpeas. And you want to add in the remaining ingredients just after that. So I can show you where we are with the pulsing here. I'll try. So that's where we are, and we're going to get it just a little bit finer so we're not eating huge chunks of celery or onions. So back to our chickpeas, which I mentioned earlier. Chickpeas are a very, very good source of fiber. And so what is fiber important for? Well, it's one of the reasons we feel more satisfied after eating a plant-based meal. It aids digestion, and it can also help reduce cholesterol. Chickpea is an excellent source of protein, which I mentioned earlier. And also, if you're looking for ways to add more calcium and iron to your diet, chickpeas are a good source of those minerals. So now we're going to pulse this once again, just a bit until our chickpeas are fine. Alright, so you see how quick this is, just a few pulses to get us started. Next, we're going to add in our remaining ingredients, including the vegan mayo and our spices. So I'm going to just put this off to the side for a second. This is 1/4 cup. And then we'll add our seasonings as well, so we can get that final pulse in and be just about done. So to this, we're gonna add a teaspoon of Old Bay seasoning. Now, if you don't have Old Bay seasoning on hand, you can always use just a little salt and pepper, maybe a little cayenne pepper, but this really gives it a zesty taste. Next, we're gonna add a teaspoon of Dijon mustard. And I like to lump that right on top of my mayo so they combine together. And last, we're gonna add our secret ingredient, which is our sea seasonings. So when you're picking a seaweed or sea seasoning to use, some of them might require some soaking before. This one, however, is fine enough that you won't need to soak it. This is what's gonna give our tuna that seaside taste. And you just sprinkle that in. I normally start with a teaspoon, but you can add another teaspoon or two depending on your taste. In fact, let's go ahead and add another teaspoon to this because we want to really get that flavor. So after you add your seaweed, the last ingredient we're going to add is the plum vinegar. And we're going to use a teaspoon. So this is going to give us that savory taste. Alright, so we're going to put our lid back on and we're going to take our last few pulses to bring this all together. So you want to spread down the sides and go ahead and combine any ingredients that you don't see fully mixed. And then you can also take a look at it and decide if you want it finer, if you want it more of a dip, if you want it more of a spread. But this we have, so it's just a little chunky. Alright, and so 3 different ways you can serve your Not So Tuna Salad is you can serve it on a lettuce leaf. This is a piece of romaine lettuce. You can serve it on a pepper and create stuffed peppers, or you can choose a cracker like I have on balsa pan. So I'm going to go ahead and just serve up a little of this here. So this is about half of our Not So Tuna Salad, and as you can see, I have about half of my canister left, and I'm gonna go ahead and transfer this over to my bowl here. So it's okay if you leave just a little in there, just get as much of it out as you can. So next, we're gonna take our Not So Tuna Salad to dinner level. All right, so to do that, we're going to use something called hearts of palm. Now, hearts of palm come in a can, and they may come, or they may come bagged, depending on where you purchase them. And so I just chopped these in half. They were about this long, and I'm gonna add these to my food processor. Now, you can also chop these by hand, but since we already have a mess here, we don't want to create another one. Put the lid back on, and we're going to pulse it just like so. When you pulse your hearts of palm, don't overdo it. So pay close attention. Just slightly pulse and keep an eye on it. Alright. So you'll notice that most of it will start to accumulate around the sides, and usually that's a good sign of good pulsing. So we're going to take our hearts of palm now, and we're going to transfer it to the bowl where we have the chickpeas. So now we're getting into the not so crabby cakes. We're going to combine our hearts of palm with our Not So Tuna Salad. And we're going to add in just a couple more ingredients to distinguish our salad from our crabless cakes. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to add about a tablespoon of parsley. So you can use dried or fresh. I'm going to go with dried today. And then next we're going to add, this is a cup of breadcrumbs. We're going to add about a half a cup and reserve a half a cup to coat the Crabless Cakes. So just about a half a cup here. And just give it a stir. So we're also going to add just a squeeze of lemon. Watch out for seeds. And maybe just a little bit more breadcrumbs here because I'm noticing that this is not quite the consistency I want yet. So depending on whether you drain your chickpeas well and drain your hartshorn palm well, just pay attention to how much breadcrumbs you'll need to balance that moisture. When you're mixing this, you want to be able to form a patty. Notice it's not dry enough. You can add in just a little bit more breadcrumbs. So with the remaining breadcrumbs, we're going to add about a half a teaspoon of Old Bay seasoning. And we want to give that a good stir. So there are a few different ways you can finish off your Crabless Cakes at this point. Once you form a patty, you can either bake them in the oven at about 400 degrees. So you want to use a non-stick pan or a silicone pan and on a cookie sheet. You could also form them and put them in an air fryer. And then you also have the option of frying them on the stove in a pan. So you need a couple of tablespoons of oil. We're going to go for tonight, we're going to bake them instead of frying, which is going to take a little bit more time, but cut out some extra fat. So we're going to start with maybe a spoonful. This is about a 1/4 cup of chickpeas, and we'll form them into our patty. So you can be creative here. And you also have the option of leaving it as is, or if you want a really crispy Crabless cake or crispy on the outside, you're going to coat it with your breadcrumbs. So I'm going to go back and add some breadcrumbs to this one. You can also decide too if you're going to make a patty that's the size of like a burger size, or if you want something smaller, depending on how you're going to eat. You're going to see me making a couple different sizes so that I can use them in different ways. So we can have a sandwich, or we can serve it alongside a salad in the smaller version. So it's up to you. The good news is when we finish, we're going to have our lunch and a dinner entree. So from here, We have about 8 patties. We could probably get up to 10 if they were smaller, or about medium size, all the same size. From here, we're going to go off to the oven for about 20 minutes. Remember, you want to keep an eye on it, so you're spending about 10 to 15 minutes baking on one side. You're going to flip them over and then bake them another 10 to 15 minutes. Alright, so we're back with our crabless cakes. They baked for about 30 minutes, 15 minutes on one side. I turned them over and baked them for another 15 minutes. So I started plating them already with just a little bit of parsley and lemon juice that you can add later. But before we go, we have time for just one more small recipe that we're going to use with our crabless cakes. So we're going to create a lemon dill dip for our crabless cakes. And I've already started by adding 2 tablespoons of that vegan mayo, or any non-egg plant-based mayo you can find. And to that, I'm going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of dried dill. Now, if you have fresh and you want to chop it up nice and fine, you can do that as well. We're going to start tonight with just a 1/4 teaspoon. It's going to look like a lot, but it is amazing flavor when you combine it with your crabless cakes. And last, I have just about a 1/4 wedge of lemon, and I'm going to squeeze the juice out. Make sure you have removed the seeds. And from here, you can add a little salt and pepper, you can add garlic, you can add lemon powder. But for now, I'm just going to stick with my dill, my lemon, and my mayo. Give that a good stir. Stir it out of my spoon here. One more time. And now we are all set. So in less than 30 minutes, we have lunch. Our Not So Tuna Salad. We've shared how to also make crabless cakes out of Not So Tuna Salad, and a lemon dill dip. So until next time, I'm Sahrah Baht Yashaahla from Minds on Meals, signing off. Thank you for listening.